Hi, welcome to Beyond the Filter. I am your host, Liz Ryerson, and this is a podcast about new media and digital art, as well as many other things. So today I have with me Felix Biederman, the co-host of the podcast Chapo Trap House. And is there anything else that you would like to be credited for, Felix?
I guess contributor to Deadspin, semi-frequent episode 1 guest. And writer of the documentary Fighting in the Age of Loneliness with John Boyce.
Oh, cool. Well, you write a lot about MMA and Gulf politics in particular, correct?
Yeah, I guess I'm going back mainly to MMA and culture. Maybe it's just my shitty personality, but the more people that write about something that I'm interested in, the less I want to do it.
Well, yeah, I think that's actually a really good way to approach like culture writing in general, especially if you're writing it from a more politically aware perspective, because somebody explaining sort of the background and the things that you would miss if you're just coming into it from the outside and don't really have an awareness of this stuff. Because I think like it's important to take that stuff seriously at some level, even if you don't enjoy it, just because it is like, you know, it's an aspect of culture, and by being like a cross section of culture, it reflects a lot of different things, and there are a lot of different sort of, you know, people and personalities that you could talk about with something like that. So I actually find it pretty fascinating, even though I don't watch something like MMA, just because it's a perspective on these things that I find really interesting, and it actually makes me want to know more about it, if that makes sense.
Thank you. That's the sort of thing I go for with the MMA writing and other cultural writing. And, you know, I always feel weird about any distinct political message attached to any writing I do, because I really haven't read enough to give you like the analysis that, like, you know, Matt Christman would give you. But I would say there are some hard set moral beliefs. I am, at the end of the day, someone who thinks that our culture is affected by our politics and not vice versa. With the MMA thing and with cultural stuff I try to touch on in general, I think it really dovetails nicely with what we're about to talk about. These worlds created by outsiders and have the distinct markings of things created by outsiders, but are still obviously highly affected by the world above them and around them.
Yeah, exactly. So what we're here to talk about today is kind of the theme of the show when I started it, which I haven't really followed very well lately, but the old internet, and specifically like digital media in general, and things that are unique to computers and the internet and culture online that aren't necessarily being taken seriously or aren't necessarily being given the sort of serious thought and critique that maybe they deserve, because either they're so new or they have like a bad association. The culture just hasn't caught up to them yet as like a serious facet of culture. For me, I grew up on the internet, and so it really is like, it has been my home for like years, and I know it has been for a lot of other people. But even if you don't have that background, it's really nice to have someone give some context, or at least give their personal experiences to you, so you know maybe where the things that exist now, like how they manifested in the past, and what has also changed over time. There's sort of these cycles where we're in the age when like culture is changing so quickly around us, and the way that things are orienting around sort of online media in general has changed so rapidly. But people talk and act as if these things have always been there in a weird way. And it's kind of like weird to go back and just say, no, like 10 years ago, things were completely different. And that's why it's important to like, you know, talk about that and remind people how things were, because they're not going to be the way that they are now for very long. Like, things are constantly changing. I guess I wanted to begin by asking you about sort of like what your history with the internet is.
My history with the internet, I first started using it when we had a dial-up connection in my house in the late 90s, when I was like 8-9 years old, and then we finally got DSL, and we had one of those iMacs, the sort of candy plated ones, the orange one, and it was in this sort of little nook right next to our kitchen. And I don't remember exactly the day, but I sort of hopped on it. And, everyone goes on the internet when they're a kid and they just, look for stuff they like. They look for, let me find out stuff about wars, or let me look at a really fast car or something. But I think everyone has that one defining moment where they look for something beyond generalized topics. They look for something that they have never found enough information on in their real world, that they've always been looking for some input on. And I think I was 10 or 11 when I did that, when I first started searching for more stuff about games, because I loved games. I was the youngest child, and as is common with youngest children, it's your older siblings, they're always brought up strictest. They couldn't have video game systems and all this other shit. But when you're the youngest, just kind of do whatever, or at least that was my experience. And so I had a PS2. I played games all the time, and I was also a significantly worse child than my brother or sister. But I had always, I guess I had always wanted to find my own world from that forever. I was a really unruly, fucked up little kid, and I had to switch schools a lot, and I was just couldn't, I had a lot of friends, but I just couldn't figure out how to make it work anywhere. I was just sort of a malcontent who had trouble processing things. And yeah, when I was 10 or 11 and I first found the now defunct GameSpy forums, and I found people having long, at the time I thought funny conversations about Metal Gear Solid 2 or, Max Payne and all these other things that I liked. I was like, holy shit, this is what I've been looking for. This is what I've been looking for, because you could have friends, but if you have this inner itch to find exactly your people, it's never going to be satisfied, and you're always going to feel like you're spinning your wheels to some extent. And from that moment, it just sort of sucked me in, and I started posting on forums I read them for a long time, because I was also a very anxious kid, and I didn't want to post, and everyone would be like, you fucking suck, go away.
Well, that was a big part of culture of the internet. It's you can't, you say the wrong thing at any moment, somebody could just tell you that you have to go fucking die or whatever.
Yeah. So I would see that just people getting, owned for saying the wrong type of video card or whatever. I'd be like, oh my God, I don't want that to happen to me. This is my only shot to get in here. And I posted, and because I was 12, I was a fucking shitty poster. Terrible. You're just why doesn't George Bush go back to his cowboy farm, you fucking idiot? And
oh my God, I made those exact kind of posts too back in the day.
Because you think you're really getting him. You're like, damn, this feels so good. No one else is saying this. Everyone else is saying it. But I think I'd always had a appreciation for comedy. I think I was one of the only people under 40 in the country who really loved the show The Critic.
I liked that show too. I think I heard that show was actually really popular, more so in the Midwest than it was in New York or on the coasts. And I have a feeling. Yeah, and I have a feeling that it's one of those things where it's references to things that adults only adults of a certain age would understand, and yet it's still a thing that I feel like a lot of kids watch just because it was a cartoon. I think The Simpsons was a similar way. There are many references in classic Simpsons to all kinds of media or whatever that I didn't understand at all, but just the fact that it wasn't, I guess the fact that it wasn't talking down to you or whatever, that
yes.
it sort of made you feel smart, you were part of the conversation.
And I think I generally think maybe people in the Midwest liked it so much because it has such a dreary view of New York. It makes fun of New York so much And then the other cultural images of New York in the 90s were, either, well, this was more in the 80s, that it was just a crime-ridden hellhole, that it was hell on earth, or just, this is the coolest place ever. Look at these sexy people's lives, like Friends or something. And
or Woody Allen's Manhattan.
Yeah, oh, God, yeah. But then you had this thing that's like, no, this guy's life sucks. Look how shitty this place is. And it's, accessible to you when you're younger to an extent. But I had, everyone in my family is really funny. My mom, especially my sister, my dad was, my brother. And I always, I was significantly younger than my brother or sisters, nearly a decade younger than both of them. And I always wanted to, be like them. You always want to elicit laughs when you're a kid. And I sucked at it because I was 9 years old. And I'm trying to make their jokes, their very urbane jokes. And it's yeah, Bill Clinton's a fucking idiot. And it's yeah, good man.
Yeah.
But I kind of knew how to craft a joke. And I think just posting there as a child for a little bit, people did see, I guess, thought I had some type of spark, because there was this test board on GameSpy that it was some sort of I don't know what the code was. I don't know any shit about code. Maybe it was HTML at the time. They're figuring something out, and they just left it up. And the best posters from the main GameSpy forum, both the off-topic posters and the main gaming posters, would go there, and it was very early internet shitposting, 2003, 2004 shitposting. In a parallel universe from Flyad and everything, from the main people who proliferated that.
Flyad was a Something Awful forum, right?
Yes.
So you were not a Something Awful person. You just read Something Awful, right?
I just read something. I just was such a fucking loser that I paid $10 to read Something Awful and never posted there.
I never wanted to pay for that site. I was you have to pay for a site on the internet? I was 16 or whatever. I'm not paying for that.
Oh, you have no idea what a fucking loser I was. Being 15 and trying to figure out how to pay for something, I was hell yeah, dude.
A lot of people, a lot of internet irony people all seem to, I'm generalizing, but a lot of them seem to have that background of being on Something Awful.
Oh, yeah, no, and I think that 90% of jokes that people now tell on Twitter come from Flyad, honestly. They come from people like Dunk or Prospector, or Wint was a Flyad guy, but most of that humor. This is a little bit of a digression, but in 2016 when we first started Chapo, we got a lot of static from Nazis, because there's a Nazi podcast, and they're you ripped off the idea of telling jokes about politics from us.
What?
And, yeah, it was.
You ripped off the idea of telling jokes about politics?
Yeah, and I think their general point was that we referenced the same type of 4chan memes, these people in this general sphere thought they invented those 4chan memes, but really, actually, a lot of those are from Flyad. If you really want to get didactic about it, and I think I saw myself about to have that argument, and I was even for me, this is such a fucking loser argument. But
well, the internet loves its fucking revisionist history, where no one knows what the actual origin of anything is, and no one makes any attempts to understand that.
No, yeah. You just see it in real time. In real time, you see everyone just decide what history has always been, and it's fascinating. But going back to the test board, it was called BTF, and when I first started I'd sort of gotten down earnest games posting and politics posting, and I was okay at it. But then when I went on to that test board BTF, I fucking sucked at shit posting. It was I was basically doing monkey cheese epic random shit, and that's not really what that posting is. Now it looks like that.
Humor? Spork? Did you do any spork humor?
Oh my god, yeah, I did.
That was such a thing in at that time.
Yeah, no, that's spork. It was that spork humor shit, and I was oh, this is how I do it, because it was so different from anything I'd seen. I obviously read Maddox, and I actually did read the front page of Something Awful. I always thought their movie reviews were fucking hilarious, and their shitty video game reviews. And all that was affected by sort of shitposting, but it wasn't really the same. And when I tried to do it, I very much seemed like an unfunny 12 or 13-year-old. And it wasn't, everyone was like, you suck, leave this fucking board. And there was one guy who was nice to me. And he said, I like your post, but like, if you keep posting shit like this, you're going to have to leave. And I just like, fuck me, I fucking suck. This is like the one place I can like feel kind of happy, and I suck at it.
Okay, the one thing I want to say about these boards though is they're like the meanest fucking places to be. Like everyone was like super mean to each other
all the time, and it is fun. Like the internet's mean now, but whenever people are like, they act like it's a new thing. It's like, holy shit, you should have seen the old internet. People just turned on each other for no reason. There wasn't even any money at stake like there is now.
Yeah.
But I posted one thread, and it was just, it's weird how history circles back around because he's become such a part of our show and what we think is funny online. Steven Seagal. I just made a post where I was like, this is a Steven Seagal mega thread. Just post all Steven Seagal pics there, and people are like, all right, this is pretty good. Not bad, dude. Then I guess I like kind of figured out what I was doing like an imitation of people I thought were I was doing an imitation of people that were like way funnier. And then I got invited to the IRC and I started gaming with them, and then I was just, as in as you could be, and it became my very insular world for about 5 or 6 years.
Mm-hmm. Well, IRC was I mean, like, obviously IRC was a big thing back then, but it was also a big thing for like, if you wanted to actually like talk to people that wasn't mediated through sort of the performativity of forums, because like forums, like, I mean, it seems really quaint now, like now that we have Twitter and you're like performing to your entire audience at all times, but like forums were still very performative even back then. And so like IRC, everything, sort of moves so fast. So yeah, you can be cool on IRC or whatever, but like that's the sort of the place where you have like where you had like real conversations with people or whatever, or on AIM, like in private too. One of my best friends online was like, we talked on AIM every single day for like a couple of years.
Yeah, AIM was where I talked to like real life people I know. Like AIM was for, people I knew when I was like in middle school, and then the first few years of high school, and it was a place where I would have, normal, boring conversation. Not always boring, because it's fun. When you're a kid, you like to shit talk your teachers or other people at school, but just they didn't ignite the same fire in me that going into IRC and talking about like shitty movies, or being like, oh, holy shit, you like Mystery Science Theater too, or like, let's talk about Metal Gear Solid for 4 hours. Let's have this like stupid fucking riff.
I can tell that you have not grown out of that.
I have fucking not matured as a person at all since I was like 15.
Well, yeah, it's the Arrested Development of like living your life online, basically.
Yeah, the funniest things that you do in IRC, I think there's a correlation between how funny something is and how funny something is to you, and how difficult it would be explained to people. And so the funniest conversations you end up having are about specific posters that you don't like or think are like funny in some way. And
that's a huge draw still on the internet when you're talking about like YouTube personalities. Like, these people constantly have beefs with each other. It's kind of like there is something, you feel like you're in on the conversation or whatever if you know people's beefs. Because I did a very similar sort of thing back then.
Yeah, well, I mean, I remember when, my sister worked for a tax publication around in the DC Nova area for a few years, and she would always call me and tell me office drama. And for some reason, it was very interesting to me. And I love, I spent a lot of time hanging out in exurbs in real life around that same adolescent age. And I loved hearing about any like small town drama I wasn't involved in. And this may just be me. Maybe I'm just like a shitty person in this way, but there is something absolutely thrilling about finding out something bad or something embarrassing or the inner workings and strifes of these people you don't know, because there's a little liminal thrill that it's not happening to you. You're like, thank fucking God this is not me. This is not me who, secretly had this dude's kid or adopted it. Thank God this isn't me who made this, accidentally posted porn he was jacking off to. Thank God this isn't me, in this office who's, on his third mortgage because he lost a bunch of money playing bridge. There is this thrilling aspect of it. There's a poem called Not Us that my sister showed me once that's sort of about it that I really like. But I think
there's also the famous Homer Simpson phrase. It's funny because it's not me.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure he says something like that in the I can't remember what episode.
And it's not just funny; it's thrilling. Like, you're so excited to see disaster that doesn't affect you, and I think that's part of that like insular IRC conversation. It is. You get to find out whatever bad details about someone, something they fucked up really badly or whatever. And you're like, oh, holy shit. I could read this for hours and hours and hours and hours, and this could be all I talk about. Because it's a sociopathic place because you're all cheering each other on.
Yeah, I mean, it is, but also, like, I don't know. It's kind of like it's something that is happening at the behest of like not having an outlet in other places, in other parts of your life. It's sort of a response to alienation, I guess.
Oh, absolutely. It absolutely is. And I'm not saying that those spaces were entirely sociopathic at all. Like, in fact, they were also like for very trying times at me, like an incredibly supportive space. Like, we really did love each other in this way that is hard to explain to people who aren't in that. And now people that I know like through fucking Twitter who are like deeply ironic jokesters or whatever, those are some of the most supportive friendships that I have. But it's not all sociopathy, but there is something about being 15, 16 and being able to like just rip somebody up like that makes you a little crazy. And it's, it happens at school, obviously. This is not just an internet thing, but for the purposes of this conversation, that was part of it.
Yeah. Well, and it was oftentimes a particular groups of people who were doing it at that time. Like, it was mostly like white male kids. Not always white, but like it is very, very male. The atmosphere of these forums. And I know that like one of my best friends, who was on a forum that I grew up with, she did like her username was very like intentionally like ugly sounding, so that people would like leave her alone. Like, it was, she picked something that was gender neutral and also sounded ugly, on purpose. And I think that's like true of a lot of. I mean, I remember women, very visible women posters on like a particular forum that I went to, but like it's very like these forums in general were very male.
Oh, I know a ton of women who did that, and it's obviously guys anywhere, but like especially I think maybe men in like an insular social circle where very few of us are like going out in the world and having fulfilling relationships. People will become immediately emotionally attached to you through no effort of your own if you're a woman. And I think also, I don't know this, I don't want to put words or intentions into them that aren't there, but I think probably, if you can present exactly how you want to present, you would want to be treated as anyone else. You would want to have the exact same conversations that everyone is having, and you want to be privy to the exact same social cash and insular enjoyment that everyone has. And you probably may correctly assume that it would endanger that if you just present as a woman. And all of the socially maladroit adolescents can go, all right, so I'm in love with you now. Because that's something that still happens is men freak out when they see a woman who sort of posts like them, because there's this little thought in the back of their head that's like, oh, that means she's like as miserable as me. I can legitimately marry this woman because she likes the same jokes that I do. She has to be the exact same as me. And they get this fucking absurd attachment to somebody that they just riff on jokes with. And it's like that you would never have with, a man. If you have a man who you talk to as frequently as a woman online that you just have the same jokey relationship with, you would never be like, yeah, that guy could be the best man at my wedding. But with a woman, because I guess you're just social conditioning and thinking that you need a girlfriend to fix all your problems. That's going to fix all your problems.
Yeah. It's definitely social conditioning, because it's like I don't know. I have weird experience. Obviously, I grew up presenting a particular way, and I think being online was a way to where I didn't have to necessarily think about my gender identity or, be constantly. I mean, I was thinking about this earlier because, like, when a lot of people talk about like popular music, they always talk about like growing up, how they really liked like this like boy band was usually like women who talk about how they really liked a particular boy band or like female pop star. And then oftentimes it's dudes talking about how they liked like new metal or something. And like I was into things that were not really gendered either way, specifically because pretty much everything made me feel uncomfortable. Like it's like I don't really like this like hardcore edgy masculine stuff, but I don't really feel like I can relate to this like boy girl like cutesy pop stuff either. So I'm kind of like figuring out gender stuff. And I think like being online and being involved with something like video games in particular is like just a way to like sidestep that, not have to think about it.
Yeah. I mean, everyone has something that they came to these early spaces for, whether it was, and it's always in the general area of satisfying this internal itch, this thing socially that you were never able to attain. And you can be either a complete outcast or someone who superficially fit in but just felt alone around all the people you were around, or is something deeper than just sort of adolescent social ennui and anguish, something like your actual identity like that. And it coalesced into this thing that was, I can never explain to people how intense that feeling was and how funny it was and what a good feeling it was for so much of it, if they never experienced it, because it could be horrible and horribly petty. And just, there are so many things, like conversations I had that I look back and I'm like, how the fuck could I care about that? Like, what a low stakes thing that I got so invested in and stupid about. But it is an intensity of feelings that is very difficult to explain to people who weren't there.
Yeah, well, I mean, like, the online community that I was in high school, there was a lot of drama. And some of that drama, by the way, has followed me into adulthood, because some of these people, like, still work in video games, and like I have to think about like drama from when I was 14.
Do people hold on to that? Do people hold grudges at you about that? That's incredible.
I mean, like most people probably don't, but there are definitely some grudges back from that era still, like to this day, and that they have never gone away. It's crazy. And like some of these people are making serious money now, like doing video game stuff too. So it's like, it's bizarre. It's bizarre to even think about how, like, cause I mean, I sort of felt like none of that stuff was of any consequence. And by the time I went to college, I wasn't online as much. I wasn't on this, the website. That I was on this website called OC Remix. I've talked about it on here before, but it was like arrangements of video game music, and like it was like a fan community. And so like a lot of people who were participating in the site were also like submitting their like arrangements of like whatever video game music, and that's kind of how I learned how to make electronic music anyway. It was actually a really valuable skill to learn just through being in like a fan community. But because it was a creative community, there was a lot of ego obviously involved with like the products that people were making. And that has also gone over into like, you know, like there are several successful composers, especially for like independent games now, who are part of that community or otherwise involved with that community. It is weird because I think if you approach these things from the outside, you don't necessarily know that these are the sorts of places that a lot of people have come out of. But I've been on so many different forums like over the years. I was on like this comedy message board for a while that like there's some people on there who are famous now but were not famous when they were posters on that board. It's like it's weird because I think there's like context is missing for a lot of people with this stuff, but it like these connections are actually really powerful. And like, you know, after I graduated from college, and I was kind of in a place where I had no idea what I was doing with my life. I had no money. It was like 2009, so it was like right after the economic collapse. I met up with some of these people that I had known online in real life for the first time. And it was like, it suddenly, like all this stuff became real life. Like, which is so bizarre to think about, but like I think that a lot of media on the internet now is actually kind of like that. Like there are a lot of I mean, like Chapo Trap House is a good example of like I know you guys didn't necessarily know each other at all in real life before you started recording that podcast, and there are some of my best online friends back from the day that guy that I talked to on AIM every single day. I've never met him in person before.
Some of
that's crazy.
Some of the people I'm closest with, like from Twitter, I never met. I didn't meet like really anyone from GameSpy, and it's another thing that's impossible to explain to people because part of it can be, you know, we share a similar sensibility and then we find out more about each other, but it really is the intensity of an insular community that binds you together in this way that is very difficult to achieve in a day-to-day life.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like this is a thing that a lot of people talk about, but there are so few actual community spaces in real life in general that, you know, aren't like going to church or whatever. And like, you don't necessarily, if you have like niche interests and you don't fit into the absolute norms, especially if you're growing up in the middle of nowhere, like the internet is your place basically.
Yeah. Or it's, and I think now, like for people who are coming on it now, I really feel bad for them because there are forums, but if you're like a kid, if you're getting online for the first time, you're going on Twitter, you're going on Instagram or Facebook or YouTube. You're going to places where the moment that you first post, there are thousands, if not millions of eyes on you. And, you know, this is not to say that there was nothing toxic in old forums and old IRCs. Of course there was. You know, we could do 5 episodes about it. But I think that everyone being in these incredibly large, voluminous general populations together when they're first starting out, it has a deleterious effect on the connections that they make, on the voice that they can find themselves with. I mean, you know, I remember one thing about the old internet, and it was that everyone was so politically weird. You know, you would get into an argument with a guy who was super pro John Kerry, but very anti-choice, and also a monarchist, and thought that we should leave Afghanistan but redouble into Iraq.
And no one used their real names either.
Yes.
So he was probably like identified as like a mech or a furry or whatever, and had like some alternative persona that this account represented or something like that.
People just had these very weird, you know, half-researched views that didn't really fold together neatly, and it was fascinating because it's, it's not so much that you have like, oh, I'm going to have a reasoned debate with you. It's like, how did you come to think that? That's really strange. That's interesting. How did you grow to be this way? But now I feel like everyone gets a pre-molded ideology when they come online. Either, they start off on YouTube in like the Ben Shapiro hellspace, or they embody some sort of online center-left persona. And there are multiple ideologies, but everyone in them, because there are so many eyes on them all the time, and they don't really get a small insular community to develop themselves, everyone's just sort of prepackaged in what they believe ideologically. And I think you can extrapolate that to everything else. People have a coming of age online, but their jokes are exactly the same. Their memes are exactly the same. The way that they process events is almost exactly the same, depending on what community in this huge. It's like, you go to prison and you wind up with whatever gang you feel like will protect you. And that's what happens when people go in this huge fucking gen pop. And I think that I can't give you a value judgment. Is it better or worse? I can't. I just can't. I think it's impossible. And I think everything is so subject to change. And what we're seeing now is so impermanent. But it's very different than what we grew up with. And I think some things about it are worse. I think some things about it are inarguably less interesting and kind of less fulfilling.
Yeah, I want to get back to that in a second, but I do think that this is a very strange time for kids to be growing up, like as a political space. I mean, for a lot of reasons, obviously, but these things are sort of like the stakes are so much higher with how, or at least they're perceived to be, with how you like politically identify, even if you're not like, you don't necessarily seriously identify with a particular side, or it's something that you only sort of understand or identify with at like an aesthetic level or something. It's still very much, the stakes are like very, very high in a way that like they weren't before. Like, it's not like I think like kids are always going to be like trying out different, ideas, ideologies, things that appeal to them. And I'm sure there are some kids that are like, watching like Keemstar or something like that. Just like somebody, do you know who that is? That's like,
of course. Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
He's one of those, mid-30s guys who's like, let me tell you which 19-year-olds hate each other.
Yeah, and he's one of those like sociopathic YouTubers who screams the N-word and like one of those kinds of people. But like, I'm sure there are a lot of kids who have perfectly good, or who will develop to have perfectly good politics, who watch that kind of stuff, and it's just like that you just kind of go through that. And I think I think that is a constant about just being a kid and youth in general, is that, because like I grew up watching South Park and thinking that was funny, and then going back and I'm like, holy shit, they made an episode about why trans people aren't real and you shouldn't respect them. And
yeah.
like, I tell people about that and they're like, did they really do an episode of it? And I'm like, yeah, they totally did. I remember watching it, but at the time, yeah, I didn't perceive it as fucked up or whatever. So yeah, I think that that's true simultaneously, but like it is true that like your political affiliation, your identity is very much like high stakes right now in a way that I think is kind of difficult and can really obscure like how these things actually play out in real life. I mean, I feel like the internet now is very like it's very black and white, and it's very like there is a side that I am picking, and that side is absolutely 100% correct.
Yes.
Yeah. And like, and if there is like, one person from your side that turns out to have said something awful or whatever, it like sort of just collapses your whole worldview or whatever.
Yeah. No, and it's everyone weaponizing worse posters of each ideology against each other. And then the remaining part of it is people who are so incredibly removed from power, arguing about how they would run the world. And, I think it's high stakes now because it's the bar to being known as like a funny person or an interesting person. It's so stratified now because you're either like you get in. Has been so bad for us, I think, to see things like likes or like individual metrics for posts. It has been so bad for us, and it's caused us to stratify talent, our concept of talent, so high up that for the rank and file poster in any community, if they're not getting those numbers, they're not going to be seen as having any redeeming qualities. You are seen as having a redeeming quality in, say how funny you are. People can look at it. Those are your metrics. They're unarguable. And so they have to just fit in with whatever the politics of their group is, because they don't have the extenuating circumstances of what everyone sees as talent or being an agreeable person, because they have no numbers backing them up. So they can't disagree on anything.
Yeah. Well, I think metrics are inherently toxic to like genuine creativity, because I mean, like the idea of just doing something unexpected in general, unless it's unexpected in a very particular way that at this point feels very calculated, and there are people who like literally tried and game the system in every single way possible, so nothing, you don't know if anything is genuine at this point anymore. But like the experience of this like kind of authentic mystery is something that the internet has always sort of valued, but it's something that has been increasingly sort of broken down to a science in a way that is inherently at odds with the idea of even enjoying something kind of out of the ordinary or mysterious. Like it's very bizarre, but it's one of those things where like I think the internet has made it, the way that the internet has been built now has made it so difficult to have like an authentic experience, and for people to be authentic without you suspecting that, somehow in some way they have like a PR firm behind them or something, or there's all this money involved that goes on behind the scenes that, things seem very accessible on the surface, but all these things are still going on behind the scenes in a way that is very like strangely disingenuous, and makes it so that I feel like it's really easy for there to be an atmosphere of just like constant paranoia about, who and what believes anything, and who's just performing and acting, and who's going to like flip from, who's going to turn into a reactionary or whatever at any moment.
It's very strange. Yeah, I think the most unsettling part of the new internet is the constant paranoia. And of course you can't blame people for it, because they're reacting to, how many things did they see that they think are totally genuine that turn out to be, there was a ton of money and a PR firm behind it, or someone turned out to be like objectively a pretty bad person or whatever. But there's a general atmosphere of distrust that makes it so that I think very few people are going to. It's another reason I think very few people now, compared to the previous one, on sort of a per capita level, aren't going to be able to attain these super tight communities. And it's very sad. But I also think we both think this is very impermanent. I think for different reasons. I don't know yours, but what do you see as like what's after this? What's after this stage that we're in? Because part of me feels like it's starting to break.
I think it is, but it's hard to say like how things will change over time. I mean, I think it's reasonable to suspect that, especially if our society moves in a more kind of leftward socialist type direction in the future, that there will be more sort of mediation of these things by like government agencies or whatever. Like there's, or things are broken apart. These things are like Facebook or whatever is nationalized in a particular way. I mean, I don't think it's unreasonable to suspect that kind of thing might happen. But I do know that, like, I don't know, having lived in the Bay Area for a while and knowing like some tech people who very much were drinking the Kool-Aid about that stuff, I think that like, I don't know. I mean, things are inherently chaotic right now, so it's really hard to predict exactly what direction they will go. I mean, I think in general things come in waves, and like it's reasonable to suspect we're at a period of time where we've been in a sort of place where like the public like inherently identifies with celebrities and celebrity culture, and like in this really kind of weird way. I mean, that's always been sort of an aspect of American culture, but it's like all facets of culture now. Like even sort of highbrow thinkers will engage with basically like fan fiction about Kim Kardashian or Kanye West or whatever, and like I don't want to get into like all the Kanye West stuff right now, but that's like a good example of like people feel so betrayed because they have a certain set of expectations, and like they have this idea of what these people's lives are like. I think because of like Me Too and because of like Trump and other things, we're going to be in a place where that sort of view of celebrity is going to flip, and there's going to be a lot more distrust of those kinds of people. Which might lead to different, it might lead to sort of different values in how people end up approaching like their online presences, and the sort of ways that they think about and talk about culture. Like I think that's probably going to happen, and I don't know exactly how that will manifest itself, but I don't know. I think it's bound to happen at some point.
Yeah, I think that that particular point about how we think about celebrities, we do have a very feudal mindset in that we can't just like somebody. We think they represent everything that we think is good in the universe, and we hinge our entire being on them. And this, people have always done that to varying levels in our history, because we do sort of revert to feudalism, but especially now, and especially with the current internet. And I hope you're right. I hope we get rid of that, because it's incredibly unhealthy. But I fear the prospect of us just doing that with new people now that we realize, wow, who could have predicted that maybe Kanye is sort of a weird person and maybe not totally well. But hey, what I think will happen generally, I am not dead set on thinking that a socialist government is going to seize power in the next 5 years, unfortunately. But I think that it's more the consequences of capitalism, because I feel like where we're at now in the financial world, it reminds me a lot of the pre-subprime era. And it's not because things have sort of gotten even more stratified in our world. It's not that things are hinged on individual variable rate mortgages to people and then packaged up and resold to banks, and everything hinges on that. It's now the new thing, which is startups, and a lot of that is online media. And a lot of our online world now, it is the way it is because of now money is at stake. And most of that money, there's obviously a very healthy crowdfunding market, but a lot of that money is tied up in venture capital investment that works on the same theory as Uber or Netflix, which is, okay, we have this unlimited pool of money that partially comes from cheap credit and partially comes from private equity. And we're operating on the idea that we're going to lose money for X amount of years that we're in business. But then, because we have more money than these other people, we can just saturate the market. And then when they go out of business because they can't possibly compete with our pool's money, we have complete market share. And it's the pretty fucking outrageous economic model, but I think what we're seeing now is the money is starting to dry up, because a lot of these places actually did get a huge amount of market share and never really made any money. A lot of these online media companies, a lot of these startup non-media startups like Uber and stuff, the margin call is coming, and we've also had too many years of a good stock market, and the cheap money ride is about to end because wealth and income, you can't really drive this capitalist engine forever as it is, as like a service economy, when very few people can actually spend money on things. And this model now of online revenue where everything is monetized based on clicks and views, it's starting to go away. That YouTube adpocalypse shit, that's not because they felt bad about whatever political content or they're trying to be more respectable. It's because people are starting to realize that a lot of online ads don't really work. And they don't really work unless you're like fucking Jake Paul. And it's slowly going away. If people have noticed, a lot of these online media companies are starting to fire a lot of people. BuzzFeed in particular, which was, that was the standard oil of big content. And now it's going downhill.
I don't know if you knew that whole drama about that YouTube channel called Channel Awesome.
No.
Oh, okay. There was is the guy who is originally referred to as the nostalgia critic. He was part of this channel, which again is called Channel Awesome, the most fucking generic, stupid name. But a lot of like big YouTubers were part of this channel. And eventually left and sort of reestablished their audiences on YouTube. But like there was this gigantic letter going around from all these different huge YouTubers about like, the ways that they were abused by them, and like, so there's a lot of like companies and stuff that have made bank off of like, or like the Fine brothers who made those like React videos.
Yeah.
They like made bank off of a particular kind of content model, but that is like inherently unsustainable, and so they like implode in this like really catastrophic way at some point, because either like a lot of employees were actually, this is what happened. At Notch, who made Minecraft, he like his company Mojang, I'm pretty sure it's a similar sort of situation where like a lot of people were hired sort of at the promise that like, oh, you're part of the company that made Minecraft, oh shit, and then when the company bought out, like they got no money from it. And so like he just like had a bunch of people who were super this company with a lot of money had made all these promises, these people that it didn't actually fulfill, and all the money ended up going to Notch or Microsoft or whoever ended up buying up Mojang. And there are a lot of sort of situations with online media that are like that, where it's like these companies that end up sort of inherently imploding because they are based upon like a certain very specific set of like circumstances of the online economy that is constantly changing. I mean, it's the same thing with indie games, actually, independent games, because like indie games used to make a huge amount of money off of Steam sales because there was like a limited amount of games on Steam, and it was actually kind of difficult to get on Steam. But then the market exploded, and now it's like very few people are making much money off of that, and people who like were successful in 2013 are not successful in 2017 because the market is just fundamentally, it's like two different worlds. Like, and there's a lot of like different stories of online media like that, so it is interesting to see how that stuff has changed. I feel like what you said about like, I do think that like I think that we're like increasingly part of an internet that is like different little cults.
Yes.
And like cults of personality in particular, and I think that is almost maybe replacing sort of click-driven, ad-driven content is like particular personalities or people who become really huge and people like start to personally identify with in this way that like, I mean, Jordan Peterson's a good example. Chapo Trap House is a good example.
Yeah, we are.
But it's like, I don't know. I was listening to this podcast about the Jonestown massacre actually recently. And I was like, there was some woman who was like a Jonestown survivor who was like on A&E or whatever. And like Jonestown was like mostly like black people, like more black than white, like who were part of that whole cult. But like she had said that like she felt like people should know about this and should know about her experiences because the conditions sort of politically are very similar to what they were, in the 70s. And there's this inherent instability that is drawing people more and more into sort of cults and cults of personality. And I mean, we saw that like there was that guy, that creepy sex cult that was based in New York.
The one that Allison Mack was in.
Yeah. Was that Allison Mack?
Yes, it was.
Oh my God.
What a weird story.
Yeah, but like I feel like there's more and more stories like that. I mean, I experienced some things that, online communities that felt very cult-like. But I don't know. I think the thing that creeped me out the most about like that podcast about Jonestown that I was listening to was, first of all, the dude, I mean, he identified as a leftist.
Yeah.
But like, if anyone, wants to believe in the possibility that there can be inherently, like, I think it's important to acknowledge, if you're a leftist, which I am, that there is the possibility for really abusive and destructive people to gain a following. And I mean, he certainly did through, he was like appointed by mayor of San Francisco, Moscone, to his like, I don't know, like advisory board or something when he was in San Francisco. But like, the thing that creeped me out the most is they played parts of like the Jonestown death tape that like he recorded when people were like doing the mass suicide. And like there's a part where he's like, he would do these like call these rituals about like I guess they were called white nights, where he would like be like, everyone sort of affirm their loyalty or whatever and say that you are going to drink this Kool-Aid and commit suicide. And like for the first like 10 times they did this, there was like no poison in the Kool-Aid or whatever. So people were probably just thinking that like, okay, this is just like this weird loyalty test or whatever. But like on the recording, like Jones says something like, well, a lot of the people who didn't say yes there, who walked out of the room there, they were white people. And like the audience was like, hell yeah. And I'm like, oh my God, like I've seen people pull this shit like on Twitter, like
everyone who liked this post, by the way, they're white guys.
Yeah, it's like I saw people talking about this with like, and I mean like, yeah, like Jonestown is like the worst example of this, obviously, but like I saw people doing this with
most
like
extreme example.
Yes, but I saw people doing this with like Dave Chappelle, for example. He had this whole bit about like, why should he have to care about trans people or whatever in his stand-up special. And first of all, the only people that I saw posting about it, like at least at first, were all black. Like, but then I saw like a whole internet of people being like, oh, it's all white like queer people who are mad at this. And I'm like, what are you talking about? This isn't reality. And I've seen the same thing with like like I'll see like a black woman complain about something and then see on the internet like takes from like a day later of someone being like, gee, like this sure made white people mad. And I'm like, what are you talking about? But like that kind of like, I guess what I'm saying is we have to be careful about like the kind of language that we use about that kind of stuff and the presumptions that we make. And like it is inherently lends itself to like abuses of power and certain like sort of black and white thinking that is really sort of ideal conditions for cults to develop.
Yeah. It's I think this is a condition of loneliness. I think we live in a very lonely time. And, for my show in particular, and I guess for my general presence and for the people who like me, I think that I and the show, we become friends that they wish that they had, because it's harder for them to access the communities that we were able to when we were younger. And I never set out to mean a lot to fucking people. That's insane to me. This fucking terrifies me that it can emotionally affect people one way or the other because they like whatever dumb shit content I do so much. But I think there are also on the other side, people who are very willingly taking advantage of this, not just for money, because there's a billion ways you can make money if you're a 3/4 clever and amoral person online, but for the power, that power of meaning so much in someone's life, and it's an intoxicating thing for people. And I generally think that the only way for things to get better online is, either the end of capitalism or just a general sentiment among people that maybe they should not they should not see people they like and people who make things they like as exemplars of everything that is right in the universe, and people that they always wish that they were, and just as people who make stuff that they like and have good things and bad things about them. And generally, the only way to achieve that is to have a less lonely society. And I don't know how that comes about. I honestly don't. Maybe what I was talking about with the collapse of big content and the general population internet, when it becomes less profitable for things to be as they are, maybe things will revert a little bit. I don't know. Maybe that will help things reorganize into smaller communities. But it is, if for everyone starting out at the age that I did, it's a sad time. It's a very sad time.
Well, I don't know. Yeah, I guess the only answer to that for me is the only way to not invest yourself so much in other people and in a way that sort of lends itself for either you to help destroy their sense of self or for them to manipulate you is to be that person yourself, actually go out and do stuff and be the person that you want to be. And I know that's that sounds, corny to say, but it's true.
Yeah, and it's really fucking hard for people to do now because they have no time, they have no money, their job consumes every hour of their day. There is no line between their work and their leisure. But, if anyone can possibly find a way to do that, it is the best thing you can do.
Yeah, well, that's the only way that I made stuff work. It's in the atmosphere of an unstable economy and not having a lot of serious prospects at all. I happen to know a lot of people through the internet, through game stuff, through indie game stuff, as that started making money and becoming a thing that people started paying attention to. And I think I was able to be a part of that sphere even 4 or 5 years ago when there was more optimism about that stuff, which changed very quickly. But that's why I have the amount of money on Patreon that I do. It's been that way for a while. I'm not a big high tier content producer. It's just I got in at the right time, and
you got your audience.
Yeah, and it sucks because it was just random. I never felt like I was in the right place at the right time at any point in my life except for that, and it was totally fucking random. It had no bearing on anything. Aside from I guess the fact that I lived in California, which fucking sucks for anyone who doesn't live in California, New York, or London or whatever. The places where media is part of the industry. But I don't know. I guess the other side of it is I think the inherent appeal of something like YouTube and a lot of new media is that there's so much media out there that I think about this when I watch a Rihanna music video. I legitimately some of Rihanna's songs, and some of her videos are just amazing spectacles or whatever. but it's like it's something that very clearly communicates when you watch it. Like, this is not you. This is like this is somebody with millions of dollars who has the budget to blow on this video, and while it's kind of like nice to sort of feel empowered or whatever, you don't get the sense that you can be that person, that there's any way that like that has anything to do with your life inherently. Whereas like YouTube, I mean, I think a lot of people, want to shit on it or whatever for just being a lot of people doing like vlogs and shit talking or whatever, and the production values being nothing. But like, I think that is the inherent appeal, is like, even some of these really big celebrities, you identify with them because they seem like another person like you, they seem like somebody that you could sit in a room and talk to. And I think that's true of like a lot of podcasts too. That's certainly true of Chapo Trap House. And I think that's actually like, in some ways, I think that's actually a really positive thing, because it sort of communicates the idea to me that like, when I saw you guys live, I knew that like these are normal people. Like, like they look like normal people. They're not. That's not like an insult. That's just like part of the appeal.
Gotcha. Well,
yeah.
YouTube is one of the only places that I think has any actual creativity on the big internet now, and I don't exactly know why, but I think that may be part of it. That for a lot of like mid-tier to upper middle tier to even like lower middle tier, like people who make videos, there is not an expectation on them to be totally perfect. And I know two guys who make YouTube videos who I think like, I only found them like, we only like, I only know who they are because we like found each other on Twitter making fun of a rapper, and I was like, oh, holy shit, these guys like, for me, it's an insane amount of views. They'll do like 1.2 million views per video, but on YouTube, they're like, yeah, we're not that big, but it's a different world. But they're actually really funny. And what I like about them, and you just looking at more YouTube, I've been spending a lot more time on there in the past 6 months than I have ever before, I think, is that there is not as much of an expectation for someone to be a dogmatic authority on someone, and you can just like somebody. And obviously there is psychotic fandom anywhere, and it's all over YouTube, but I feel like there is more of a space to just be sort of like this person that people like there.
Yeah, well, especially if you're not talking about politics, because like
yes.
I had ContraPoints on here. I don't know if you've heard of her.
Oh yeah,
channel.
I like her videos. I think she does good videos.
Yeah, like I think she does good stuff, but she is in a position both from being trans and also like engaging with very touchy issues where like she has been in a place where like, there have been a lot of people sort of actively being like, she's a secret reactionary, like don't fucking watch her videos. And it's like, you can think whatever you want to think about this person. You don't know them, but like, like it's, I think if you're in a place where you're doing politics stuff, and especially if you're in a marginalized group and you have just more riding on your visibility, I think there's more of a chance for that to happen. But yeah, with other YouTubers, that's certainly the case.
Well, with a marginal, if it is something I've noticed, that the backlash to somebody who is, any marginalized identity checkmark to something that they say that can be perceived as like wrong or reactionary in any way at all, it comes so much harder, because I think that the hordes of internet people on that side are like, oh, you're supposed to be right because of your identity. You're supposed to agree with me exactly on this. You're supposed to be, depersonalization works in two ways. Someone's either a subhuman piece of shit, or they're magical and they can never be wrong in your eyes. And if they are wrong, it crashes down your entire world that you've hinged on them, and you just you go at them like they destroyed your image of the world, which they kind of did through no fault of their own, through the stupid way that we conceive things we like now.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely, I can say that through lack of experience, my own ignorance, probably my own internalized racism too, like I sort of idealized black people and the black point of view in a way that like, American liberal culture does, like, and being on Twitter was a and engaging more with politics and those kind of issues was a good lesson in being like, just because somebody's like marginalized doesn't mean they understand like issues. They're not like, doesn't mean that they're not like a fucked up abusive person. It doesn't mean anything. And if you think that just because somebody's marginalized that they're not like that, then you are inherently actually helping dehumanize them, because you're not seeing them as capable of doing anything that any human being could do. Yeah. And it's difficult.
Yeah, it's another unhealthy behavior. But going back, yeah, I know, I like her videos, counterpoints.
Yeah, so I guess one thing I wanted to get to before we go was I wanted to talk about like particular personalities or people from the old internet, or who sort of embody that experience of the old internet, or like particular like stories or anecdotes that you have that like you wanted to share or talk about.
There was one guy who I knew in my IRC group. He was actually the guy who said to me, "I like you, but if you keep making posts like this on our shit posting board, you're never gonna get accepted here." It was this dude who is really like, this sounds like such a bullshit, like dumb great man historian thing to say, but I do think that in your life you generally meet you have a few people you meet that are incredibly pivotal to you, that completely change how it would have been, and this guy was one of them. And it was this dude, his screen name was Nitro, and he was an Egyptian American medical student in New York, and he was like a big politics poster up until about 2005, and then he was like, you know what, we're kind of spinning our wheels, getting like arguing, like getting these life or death arguments on like forums with like 400, 500 people on it. And then he just got really, he was always like sort of a shit poster dude, but he got way more into it, and he was like the most senior guy, I guess, of our IRC group, and he was just generally like a really funny guy, but also like very positive, like very fun to talk to. And I think he was very pivotal to me, and I don't see a lot of guys like this now for people in these communities now. He was someone who was like, yeah, you know what, don't fucking kill yourself over this shit. Don't fucking go so crazy that you lose sight of yourself over these things that aren't really real in a lot of ways. And the point of this is to have fun, and you should have fun with each other, and I should have fun with you. And the point of this is recreationally at the end of the day. And it informed a lot of what I saw the utility of like making posts and everything. It made me realize that you make posts for yourself at the end of the day. You make them because you think they're funny, and you find communities when people think they're funny, or when people find an aspect about it they like about it. But it was one of the most formative he was one of the most formative people for me. But as far as people that more exemplify the old internet, I think it would have to be Demonius X, right?
I don't know Demonius X very well, so can you describe? I just know of him from you talking about him on Chapo.
Demonius X was he is this guy on YouTube who made this video called on fleshlights and hating women, and he's this very large guy who has like a very Michigander accent. He talks like this, and he has this like disgusting video where he's just drinking beer in front of a blurry webcam, and he's like, for all you, this is the most iconic, the reason this thing sort of picked up was he goes, for all you trolls out there who don't believe I had sex, I had the bitch over there in that fucking bed. And it's just like a completely dilapidated looking bed, and he goes, I was railing her snatch like there was no tomorrow. And I came in my condom, and it felt wonderful. But then the bitch turned psycho, September 2000. And this video is made in like 2008, and that's like the last time he had sex. And he has all these, like, he's a very like vulgar, gross, misogynistic, and racist person, but he has all these weird idiosyncrasies. Like he thinks that video games suck now, and he's like, the only good game was fucking Top Gun on SNES.
What?
Yeah, he'll only play games from like 1985 because that was like, for him, that was like when he was making these videos, like the last time he was happy. And there's a lot to like not like about him, obviously, because he's like, you know, he was like a proto man going his own way, and he's like extremely racist. Iconically, like, he drops an N-bomb and goes, and, you know, I'm not racist. I have 2 black co-workers. Michael Thomas is one, and the other was Tyrone Smithers. Like, clearly made up. But there are so many things about him that go beyond just him being racist or, like, gross or whatever that are, like, interesting. Like, why do you think that about games? Why do you, you know, why do you have this really... He made a video about, like, how to diet, which is really weird, but it's like, how did you get all these weird ideas, man? Like, why do you have these weird verbal idiosyncrasies? Why is everything you believe, like, sort of wrong in this very interesting way? And then he ended up, like, meeting someone on YouTube and getting married to them and sort of calmed down. But I think he's very old internet, because it was someone you could see who you were fascinated by, not because you're like, oh, this guy says everything right, or this guy is the void, he's filling the void I've been looking for, but it's because it's like, wow, there is so much not right but also interesting going on here that I want to figure more of it out. And that's not to say that it's a totally altruistic thing that people were fascinated by him. No one's like, oh, I want to understand this guy. You know, it's the same mean internet of just gawking at some fucked up shitty dude.
Well, it's like
yeah.
Chris Chan, the whole thing with Chris Chan. Like, that's a good example of, like, people just... I'm not going to go into it, but you can look it up if you want to. Like, to people who are listening. But yes, that is an example of somebody who is, like, famous because of people being mean about them. I mean, he's a very strange character, but yeah.
But yeah, my family loves Demonius X. The 2 guys on YouTube who I love are Dan Quinn and Demonius X, and I found them both around the same time. And my family is just terrified by Dan Quinn, but my family loves him. Like, they're so interested by him. Like, they're not very online people and never were compared to me, but they... Like, my mom thinks Demonius is, like, that video where he's like, "Kim McCondom" is, like, the funniest thing ever. And she still phonetically writes out "wonderful" like him because she thinks it's so funny.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I don't think if I showed that to my parents, they would ever understand that. It makes me think of, like, you're describing...
I grew up in an irony Orthodox family.
Yeah, that makes sense. It like, you describing it makes me think of, like, you know that guy Jordan Owen?
Yeah.
It makes me think of him, like, his, like, he has just, like, these bizarre unhinged rants. Like, it was mostly about Anita Sarkeesian, because, like, a lot of these guys, it's so funny. Like, I've, like, met Anita Sarkeesian in person, and, like, she is, like, it's so funny to me that, like, having actually, like, met her in person, the idea that these people have about her, because it's not even like, it's so weird and random, but, like, he's another one of those guys who's, like, a bizarre shut-in and, like, talks about, like, you know, how... I think there was, like, a clip of... I learned about this from, you know, H. Bomber guy.
Yeah.
He had, like, these videos about, like, Jordan Owen and what's that other guy, that bald guy who also did, like, the Sarkeesian effect. I can't remember.
Davis Oriani.
Yeah, Davis Oriani. It seems like they're kind of ripping off of the Demonius X thing.
Kind of. And you know what? They're not as interesting as Demonius X, because Demonius is kind of an auteur, and none of these new guys are.
They don't... Like, if they're interesting, it's unintentionally so.
Yeah, and all these guys, all the guys that I like, they were like to watch. They were auteurs in this way. Like, they didn't know how unique their wrongness was. But, like, yeah, like, so Davis Oriani is funny because he's like, like, shitty bald dude with a goatee, and he's, like, writes these really funny posts where he's like, whiskey and a cigarette, a bastard's meal or something, and he makes these completely fucking dumbass movies about Anita Sarkeesian, but it's like everything about him you could predict. It's like, oh, you're a whiskey guy. Oh, you think feminism ruined your life. Okay, fine. But with
true.
With Demonius, it's like, wait, why the fuck do you think that about Top Gun? Like, what?
Well, it also makes me think of somebody who is a genuine, like, sort of, I'm not going to say relic's the wrong word, but a genuine, like, true hero of the old internet. I don't know how to describe him. Ula Lilia.
Yeah. Yes. Absolutely. Yes.
Ula Lilia is like known for being an interesting character. He has a huge fan base, or at least did. I think he's like calmed down. He hasn't really made a lot of videos, but like a lot of people, I mean, there are people who make fun of him, but there are also a lot of people who are who at least were super protective of Ula Lilia. Yeah, because he's an interesting character. He's not really reactionary, whatever. He just like really fascinated by strangely specific details in video games and like just specific details in his life, like about the way
degreasing.
that he. Yes. Yeah, exactly. Or like he had this game called Platform Masters that he was working on, and he was like talking about the layers of parallax in the background, and there were like 20 layers of parallax. Like there's no reason to do that. Like it actually just like slows down your computer dramatically. But he was just like obsessed with the parallax.
Yeah, and it's like wow, you have really wrong ideas, but in a funny, interesting way, in a way that is very unique as a person. And like, now you just find somebody that just hit all those check marks. Nothing really that out there about them, even in the bad people.
Yeah, I don't know. It's funny. It's funny that you talk a lot about Metal Gear Solid too, because one other person that I guess he isn't quite like this, but there's a game journalist. His name is Tim Rogers. Have you ever read anything he's written?
No, I haven't.
Oh, I'm surprised. Okay, so he wrote like this big, like his first well-known piece was about Metal Gear Solid 2. And it was like about, why the game was meta and like talking about that. And it was sort of coined as categorized as new games journalism. Like that's what the name for it was. But a lot of it was like, he had this website, I think it's still up. And he's somebody that I actually know in person now, which is the bizarre part about it. But he's also from like kind of a strange character from the Midwest originally. He's from Indiana, and he like lived in Japan for like 10 years. And actually worked for the Japanese game industry for a little bit. And then he was living in Oakland for a while. I used to like hang out with him occasionally. But he has like this website called actionbutton.net, and it's just all these like bizarrely unedited. God, I hope he doesn't listen to this. Bizarrely like unedited just pieces about video games, and there are a lot of like really interesting observations, but it was mixed in with just him talking about like his dating life and like his penis, and like it's just like the most like just like stream of consciousness kind of like I don't know thing. But like he also for a while was like he now does like video stuff for Kotaku, so I guess like you can watch that stuff now. But like he had this like documentary called Get Bonus the Movie, which was just him and this other guy who's another bizarre fucking character named Bob he had this game called Bob's Game, which was just like this elaborate like hoax. Mm-hmm. I don't know how to describe it. But apparently that guy like has gone crazy now and like lives somewhere in the remote, West. But anyway, also another like bizarre Midwesterner, actually, come to think of it.
This is the thought I will close out with is my theory about I'm a Midwest supremacist. I guess I think the Midwest we're like the Golden Horde, and we just go west and east and conquer. But I think generally people in the Midwest maybe have like they'll go for it more when they're online, because I think that if you go to a place like New York or LA or San Francisco, people are sort of beaten down into their careers and their lives, and they're like, yeah, I live in a fucking 3x10 apartment that costs $20,000 a month. It sucks. It's awful. I hate it. But it's, eventually I'll get into a rent control place and I'll make partner at my firm. Haha, it's fine, actually. Working 8 hours a week is fine. It's just life in the big city. It's great, right? Because they're tempering their misery because they think one day they're going to be the person that assigns misery to someone else. And in the Midwest, a lot of people hate their lives, and they're very open about telling you that their lives suck, and they will very openly, to mitigate it, they will very openly take on a new identity in front of you. They'll be like, well, I don't think I'm getting out of this town or this state. My life is going to suck for the same reasons it always has, maybe. But, why don't I become a fucking juggalo? Why don't I become a motocross guy? Why don't I become... Yeah. They'll just, like, right in front of you, oh, yeah, I'm taking this identity to mitigate the horrifying factors of my life, whatever ennui and angst I feel. And I think it makes you grow up there, you understand more types of people than if you grow up some other places in America. And a lot of other places in America are like that, but yeah.
If you go outside your bubble anyway, because there are like really hardcore bubbles in the Midwest. Like people I grew up around, like I grew up not too far away from Columbus, and there are people that I knew in the town I grew up who had never been to Columbus before in their entire lives, and it was like a 50-minute drive away.
Oh yeah, it can be hyper insular. Yeah.
But yeah, to finish the story about Tim Rogers, they had this like documentary, and I was obsessed about it. And I just watched it over and over and over and over again. And like, I don't know why, but I was just like, I think it was just this like this personality. And like, I ended up meeting him in person, and like, we're not like super close, but we talk to each other sometimes. And it is like weird to have real life intersect with that thing. But like, he's somebody who I also kind of associate as one of those kinds of personalities. But actually, what you said makes me think of it's something I've thought about a lot, actually. It's something that the rapper Danny Brown said, like in an interview that I watched with him, where he said like he's from Detroit. Yeah. And he said there isn't anything to do here. So like all you really have is your dreams, yes. And like his music is very sort of indicative of that. Like there are tracks that are, influenced, like some of his favorite music is like indie rock music, but then there's like stuff that sounds like rave music, but then there's stuff that sounds like, like he sampled like really old BBC radiophonic, which is like really old, bizarre sort of arty electronic music in his work. But like, it sort of summarizes how I think I approach my own perspective artistically too, in that like I grew up in a place where I didn't really have an idea of what anything I liked was about. Like I didn't have the cultural context or whatever. So I could just dream up my own sort of vision of reality and what things were. And when that sort of ended up meeting with like a specific cultural idea or context, like I just didn't understand it. Like I didn't understand all this media that came from New York that had like a certain idea about culture or about, what was important or valuable, because I just had my own like personal idiosyncratic idea. Because I don't know, it's like if you grow up in the middle of nowhere, and I guess most of the people who are probably listening to this are probably on the coasts and like I live in LA now. I like living in California. It's like my adopted home state at this point, but and I don't really plan on leaving soon. But I will say that like that like those dreams and that ability to just sort of be your own person and sort of conceptualize your own idea of what reality is, I think is really important. And I think that's like really crucial to the kind of like artistic work that has like longevity and sort of exists outside trends or styles. And like, I don't know, as a kid, I always like really looked up to Devo, the band Devo, not just in terms of like, cause they're from Akron, Ohio. That not just because of like, not just musically, but in terms of like, they had their own sort of ideas and ideology and like this whole sort of political perspective that sort of played out on every level. And you don't get that, like you get laughed at if you try and do that stuff, as part of like a big scene or whatever in like a city like LA or New York generally. So I think that is the advantage to coming from a place in the middle of nowhere. And I think it's really important to actually tell people that and to have them hear that, because I think it's really easy, especially in this day and age, like for people to associate those places with just horrible backwater places where nothing or no one interesting comes from.
Yeah.
And I think that's like, I don't know. I think like some of the most important drivers of culture, like if I'm thinking about like the DSA or something, like the DSA groups that I have the most optimism about are the ones that are, at random places in the South or in the Midwest or something. Cause like those are places where people have no other community or ideas, and they can sort of help build that. And like, I don't know, if there's one thing I can like impart to people, it's that you should be that sort of person and like make your own language and do your own sort of things, because the way that the internet media is online, it sort of gives you this idea, especially with how sort of metrics driven everything is. It gives you this idea that there is this certain way to approach like discourse and to sort of game the system, to present yourself and approach what you do and what you make. And I think that's bullshit. And like, we should be pushing back against that as actively as possible. You should not have to be in like a media center in the world to do things, to make interesting work and to be taken seriously. So I don't know. And that's why I support sort of outsider media in general. Just because I think that sort of those idiosyncrasies and that sort of mystery has actually the chance to develop and become like a fully developed world that has like breadth and has something that can, like, I don't know, genuinely empower people. I get really emotional about this issue, actually.
No, I feel you.
Do you have anything else you wanted to say before going?
I think we covered it all, but that was really fun. Thank you so much. I've been waiting to have that conversation for a really long time.
Yeah, no problem. I hope that some people listen and take it to heart and think about this stuff, because like I said, and like you said before, things are constantly changing, and what is the case now is not going to be the case like 5 years from now. So you have the power to envision that future, I guess.
I feel like I'm riding the wave like anyone else.
Totally. I think we all are. We don't know where any of this is going to go.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Well, thank you so much for coming on,
no problem.
Felix. This is Felix Biederman, By Your Logic on Twitter, and you're co-host of Chapo Trap House, and also write articles for Deadspin and other places. Do you still do Carl Diegler?
No, but stay tuned is all I'm going to say.
All right.
But thank you so. Yeah.